Amidala Hopa. Thank you for joining us. I am Aaliyah Chavez. Today we're exploring the evolution of Native American education, from inspirational and historical achievements to modern-day challenges and solutions. We'll start with a story that takes us back over a century when a group of Native girls defied the odds and made history on the basketball court. Here's Renata Birkenbuhl with more on this incredible legacy of excellence.
Imagine wearing a heavy woolen long-sleeved sailor suit as a uniform while playing basketball outside in the stifling St. Louis, Missouri heat. Did I happen to mention it's 1904? This was the reality for the Fort Shaw Indian girls basketball team, who not only competed but dominated at the 1904 World's Fair. These girls, hailing from various tribes and regions, played with unmatched skill and determination, winning against non-native teams who greatly underestimated them. The World's Fair was quite the spectacle, and the Fort Shaw team stole the spotlight, beating teams from Illinois and Missouri. They were not just playing basketball. They were making a statement about resilience, excellence, and the meeting of the old world with the new. Enter artist Cecil, a descendant of two team members who helped organize a recent gathering to commemorate the 120th anniversary of the team's historic victory.
I'm originally from Poplar, Montana, which is on the Fort Peck Reservation in northeast Montana. And I'm currently living north of Coeur d'Alene in a town called Hayden, Idaho. And I am an enrolled member of the Fort Peck tribes. I'm a Assiniboine of the Red Bottom Band. About 9 months ago, September, I came across her book and read it and was startled to find so much of my family history. It got me enthused, and as a result, I ended up wanting to have a gathering of descendants, and June 8th, and all of the pieces came together, and including Linda coming from Vermont to be the guest speaker.
In June 2024, descendants from all over came together in Fort Shaw, Montana. They gathered to celebrate and honor the girls' remarkable basketball achievements. The event drew hundreds, some meeting relatives for the first time. Linda Peavy, co-author of Full Court Quest, spoke about the importance of this team.
These girls were way ahead of their time. I know that basketball for girls had tried to slow the game down, and yet that the girls from Fort Shaw and most of the Western teams still played rough and tumble style like the girls played.
The Fort Shaw team played in unusual conditions, outdoors in heavy uniforms with a bigger ball that didn't bounce like today. But they were unstoppable, passing and strategizing their way to victory after victory. In one memorable game, they defeated the Missouri All-Stars 24-2 in the stifling heat, ultimately clinching the world championship. A monument in Fort Shaw now stands to honor these trailblazers. Inscribed with their names, it serves as a reminder of their legacy. Descendants raised funds for this monument, ensuring their ancestors' accomplishments are never forgotten. The story of the Fort Shaw Indian girls basketball team is one of resilience, sports excellence, and historical significance. We honor their contribution to sports and their native cultures. For ICT, I'm Renata Birkenbuhl.
What an incredible story. Now let's shift to the present-day reality of Native education. Many students are facing obstacles like chronic absenteeism and low college enrollment. But leaders in Native American education are addressing these issues head-on. Let's hear from 3 experts who share their insights and solutions.
Chronic absenteeism among Native students started to increase when the 2020 pandemic kept students at home, even if they had internet access and a chance to study virtually. Educator Donna Ritchie of Anadarko, Oklahoma, said about 80% of the district's students are Native.
We've always had those challenges in our community like this, but chronic absenteeism, right, has really expanded. with that, as well as across the nation. With our tribal communities and schools, we implemented that program during a pandemic year where we were able to kind of stable that a little bit in our community, which I always loved hearing our superintendent, say, I don't know what we would have done without this program.
Richie said thanks to a special program, 90% of the school's Native students have reduced their absentee rate.
In Anadarko, in their public school system, their chronic absenteeism rate reduced. It was between 10 and 20% of a decrease in their chronic absenteeism overall for their district over the year. So it was really interesting. Even in the COVID year, they were able to maintain the rate instead of decrease it.
Some of the factors that contribute to chronic absenteeism include lack of transportation to and from school, health and wellness problems, and lack of basic resources like electricity or even a computer. Chronic absenteeism remains higher among Native students compared to the general population, but Native educators continue to problem solve. Building community relationships, sharing resources, and mentoring students is key. Developing trusting relationships with students is important too.
Sometimes in an education setting, that's very challenging. And so, if you look at the research and you look at anecdotal ideas from school personnel and from students and from parents, a lot of times students will say that the research will say that they need a mentor, right? Or they need a connection. And the value of that one person in the building that can really focus, right, on that strengths and asset base, developing relationships, helping to kind of support those relationships, even between home, community, and the students and the teachers. So really someone to be there to be able to make those connections, to not only connect people together in relationships, but also resources.
Higher education, too, struggles with Native students staying in school. According to the National Center for Educational Statistics, about 40% fewer Native college students are entering college for a variety of reasons. One educator said that steep decline is a crisis, but she said resources abound to help get those students back on track.
We've seen a drop in Native student enrollment in college of about 40%, which is a crisis in Indian country. It's actually a crisis for America when you have a population that isn't able to access post-secondary education.
One of the causes is a problem that so many Native parents who are college students deal with daily: the lack of childcare for starters, then also the growing cost of higher education.
Oftentimes, I think, which is normal, we default to cost. We think that, it is a significant barrier to American Indian Alaska Native students to be able to access sufficient financial resources to go to college. Mm-hmm. We find that a significant number of students, such as like at the College Fund, about 40% of our students have dependents.
Another key to Native student success across the board is learning from teachers of color and studying true histories of Native peoples. One educator, who also works with tribes on keeping their languages alive, also teaches teachers how to teach Native curriculum.
Montana has this law called Indian Education for All, and it's been kind of part of our Constitution since 1972. In 1999, the legislature passed it actually into law. And then what it says is that all students, in all subject areas, and we're talking pre-K through college, should be learning in culturally responsive ways about Montana's First People.
Indian Education for All in Montana was finally funded in 2005 for every student from kindergarten through 12th grade. That's when more curriculum was developed in hopes that more teachers would incorporate Native culture and history into their lessons.
What Indian Education for All does is it infuses the curriculum with materials that are respectful and culturally responsive, and if done well, engage students in feeling much more included And so for students to have that experience, teachers need to also know it. We also see that there is an important impact on non-Native students, especially when they don't live near a reservation, or they don't have access to any way to break down stereotypes, to actually get to know anything about the people that are their neighbors. And so, we see Indian Education for All as a way of creating better neighbors.
I think I'll put a plug in for more Native teachers, both teachers who teach Native students and teachers who teach in schools. Because if your colleagues, if you have Native colleagues, just like if you have any other person of color as a colleague, or people with different gender identities as colleagues, it allows you to be more comfortable being able to teach about different subject matters. And so I think let's increase Native student enrollment in higher ed by getting more teachers.
Crazy Bull said a combination of solutions will help alleviate the crisis in Native education enrollment. She said valuing post-secondary education, vocational and technical education, fostering community engagement, and teaching young Native students that college is for them, too, helps in the long run.
Our communities are struggling. Our people are struggling. And so I think education is we have to wrap it around people, wrap it around our families at an early age, and really try to influence everything from early childhood ed to K-12 education so that those opportunities for higher ed open up. But yeah, I think it's hard work for all of us, and just that constant push to help people see just what Donna was saying. You have the assets. You have that in you to, we are evidence that you as a Native person can have a successful college experience. Took me 3 colleges and look at me now. So, you can do it.
Wool Giscud, good weather. Wool is good. Giscud is what the weather is like. So you put wool Giscud and you'll have good weather.
It is a struggle for many Indigenous students as school gets underway. A group of educators from Augustana University in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, have developed a philosophy to help youth at risk. Shirley Snavy has this report.
It's the 30th anniversary of a groundbreaking method to address issues facing youth. Martin Brokenleg is an Episcopal priest and an educator who grew up on the Rosebud Reservation in South Dakota.
I was troubled by what seemed to be wrong with us, Indigenous people. Why were we the people who had addiction issues? Why were they people who were always hearing about domestic violence? Why were parents and kids at each other's throats day and night? And I couldn't quite believe there was something wrong with us, which was the attitude at the time in the 1950s. There must be something wrong with all these Indians doing all these wrong things. And I was sure that wasn't true, but I couldn't figure out what it was. And it was only through some years of work in psychology that I came to see that trauma, every social disease that you see in Indigenous people, in Lakota communities, on every reservation and in every urban area, all of those negative circumstances are the direct result of trauma. They're symptoms of trauma.
Mental health is more important than physical because it's tough to get in physical health if your mind's not in the right place. I don't think there's been enough historical involvement to really know what it is. But yeah, for myself, to be able to talk and understand your past. My children actually saw a therapist and they started talking to me and said, "You don't know what emotions are, Dad." And I said, "I know what mad is, and you're going to make me mad if you keep talking happy, sad." And they said, "Yeah, but you don't, and that's okay because every generation's getting." They explained it to me, and then it made sense. And it's very important to be able to identify why a certain behavior is a certain way. But then going through the COVID pandemic, we saw it just increase that much more. And I don't know that we know the extent of the mental damage that COVID did in isolation. I know myself, the large crowds and stuff are tough to get back into, and just that feeling of uncertainty, there was like the ground was shaking underneath you.
So often young people are looked at as the problem, and really young people, we're a part of the solution. We're very focused on an intergenerational approach because intergenerational healing is so necessary, and we see good trouble, bringing together community, storytelling, and doing that necessary intergenerational healing.
You have to be psychologically and physically safe in order to learn and grow. And knowing that some of our Indigenous students have not had that opportunity to feel that safety. And again, for them, just to be able to maybe plant some seeds of what that can be. But it takes community to do that. At our university, it takes our entire university to help plant and also cultivate those seeds.
We have always had the antidote to what can fix that in our culture and in our traditions. And so the Circle of Courage is simply saying, if we follow these fundamental themes in our tradition, that's the medicine for all the brokenness that we see in Indian people today. The Circle of Courage, we use 4 words to talk about universal importance. That's belonging, what Lakotas call kinship. That matters to us the most. It's the most sacred principle that we have. Our word for praying and for accurately naming your kinfolk is the same word in Lakota. So the social cohesion that is glue, that has helped even very troubled and dysfunctional Indian people still manage. We get by okay with all of that. Mastery in the sense of having a sense of what we can do. We don't have to be rocket scientists. You just have to have enough baling wire to keep your reservation car going. That can be a real accomplishment of mastery. Independence in the sense of being responsible for yourself. Not independence as a solitary success, but rather the sense that you're responsible for yourself. And of course, our spiritual ways teach us that in very profoundly. And the 4th component is generosity. That's how we keep in touch with our goodness. We do this by acts of generosity. If somebody admires something, give it to them. If you're going to honor the memory of your grandmother, feed everybody, give them gifts so they'll remember that occasion. This giving in big ways and little ways, whether it's food or hospitality. If you go and you sit by some singers and you don't do anything, at the end of it, they'll all come by and shake hands and thank you for helping them. Just being present is an accomplishment. So we have within us all of these treasures. And that's what's the medicine for all the ills and problems that we see around us over and over now.
The Circle of Courage is a philosophy that has found meaning in communities around the world. 100 people gathered this summer from as far away as Australia, Germany, Wales, and Canada.
We all need to experience this Circle of Courage. We all need to experience these deep values, these human values that we have of belonging, mastery, independence, generosity. Young, old, and once we experience those and have that clear understanding, to create a shared understanding with others and bring that knowledge and insight to the public.
For ICT from the homelands of the Dakota Oyate, I'm Shirley Snavy.
Speaking Native American languages is more than just words. It is a connection to our ancestors. At the Karis Children's Learning Center in New Mexico, students are immersed in their native tongue and keeping traditions alive. Paris Wise takes us there to see how this immersion school operates.
Guatinahopa. That is a greeting I was taught by one of my grandfathers in the Karis dialect of Zia Pueblo, one of the tribes my family is from. In New Mexico, there are 19 pueblos, and 7 of them speak their own dialect of the Karis language. Aiming to learn more of my language myself, I'm in awe of those who take that step and who are building foundations to teach future generations. At Cochiti Pueblo, tribal members have founded an immersion school called the Karis Children's Learning Center, also known as KCLC. The school serves children from birth to 18, but The lessons are not just for the kids and go beyond the classroom.
Kuetsia hin payakiam sitran hapani hanos suta nawishtawa ese kukitime kukachtima osuta. Hello, my name is Dr. Curtis Chavez, and I am from the Oak Clan, and I'm also from Coach T. Pueblo and San Felipe Pueblo. I myself am a second language learner. I did have the fluent speakers in my family, but at that time, it was really frowned upon to speak the Keres language, and so a lot of our parents spoke that English language to us, and that was really how we picked that up, and English is spoken throughout the world.
While most of the older generations are still fluent Keres speakers, revitalization is necessary due to a decline of the language being known and used over time. This is due to a variety of reasons, including forced infrastructure on the tribes, religion, and the boarding school era that contributed to stripping people of their language and culture. This is where immersion schools can try to reverse some of those effects and teach in new ways, or in some old ways.
Our infant and toddlers and our primary classroom are really, they're the sponges. They're the ones that really pick it up. As infants, you really retain what is being taught to you. And that's how a lot of our elder generation picked it up. They were constantly spoken to in the Keres language. And so that's how they became first language learners in the Keres language.
Gwedzi hopa hin hanatits ese hichani hanuch. My name is Celeste, in the community known as Penny Naranjo, and my Indian name is Hanatits, which means clouds, and I come from the Cottonwood clan. So Keres was spoken by my grandparents, and I lived with them, grew up with them, and so Keres was spoken a lot, and of course my mother and my aunts are fluent speakers. Doesn't go to say that I'm fluent, but I've taken that on to better myself, better my participation in the community, better my family and our youngest 3-year-old. It's unique because we all understand that we're all learners, and it's a comfortable feeling atmosphere to be in, and we're not afraid to speak what we know and what we can share and ask questions.
The school offers full immersion and dual immersion for different age groups using the Montessori method of education, which utilizes hands-on learning, a very different approach from most classrooms and Western ways of teaching. This method is what faculty and instructors have found to work best with the Pueblo ways of life, as learning the language is useful in everyday conversation, but more importantly in traditions. Dwight Modi is an instructor at KCLC who was formerly the tribe's war chief, the highest position in the Pueblo, which typically changes from year to year.
I don't think there's any bigger reward than watching a kid say a specific word or use it in a sentence. And I think that just makes me happy, and that's what I'm here for, is to see how much I can install and leave my legacy here. So something they can remember down the line, like, oh yeah, this one bird taught us how to use this language or taught us how to talk.
Parents make that choice to send their children to KCLC. They have the option of going to the public school or neighboring schools in Santa Fe and Albuquerque, but KCLC is definitely a choice. We have to make that commitment to learning the language, not only the child, but the family.
Preservation of language and culture is not just a course to take in school, but a way of life among Pueblos as well as indigenous communities everywhere.
The Keres language is very important to the community. In order for us to be Coach T people, we need to have that language. I've heard even one of our elders say our ancestors, as they have passed on, they don't speak English, so how are they going to understand you when you pray as well? And so that's what I hope for the future, is that we're able to build on this and inspire others to implement these types of schools in their own communities, in teaching in their mother tongues, in their language, and not to be ashamed. Also, not to always think that the Western way of education is the way that we need to go. And so we need to really be strong and resilient.
It's been a joy, it's been an adventure, it's been a challenge, but the challenge is good because I still know it in my heart that our language will strive and survive, and our culture will move on. But it's going to take not only myself, but all the teachers to band together and work together and just help the kids grow in their traditional ways.
While our languages are not universal, the hope for the future is. For ICT, Paris Wise.
And that's a slice of our Indigenous world. For more stories like these, visit us at ictnews.org. From all of us in the newsroom, stay safe, my relatives.
Whether you're a woman or whether you're a man, sometimes you got to take a stand. Just because you know you can, you got to run, you got to run.